Hey y'all! Hey y'all! Ready for some sexual reproduction? Notes?
Yeah, notes. Okay.
Okay, so before we even start sexual reproduction, I know you guys are going through health class. You're like, seriously guys, we need to know this again? That's not health class. It's not the same at all.
Nope, you're not going to learn about the birds and the bees. You're going to learn about why you look the way you look.
And one thing I want to point out, even though it's in the title, sexual reproduction, let's put it out there. Sex is not required for sexual reproduction. So please open your mind to other organisms other than what you think you've watched on movies and TV the last 13 years.
Yep, and we're going to explain what we mean by that when we get a little further into this.
Yep. Okay, so let's do some terms before we actually get into the nitty-gritties.
Okay, so heredity is one of the first words that we want you to kind of pay attention to. So this is simply just the passing of traits from a parent to an offspring, whether that be a child or an animal. So you have specific traits within you because your parents, your mom and dad, passed them on to you.
Yeah, so if you look at this lovely lady here, she has this gorgeous smile that she passed on to her child over here. I mean, look at that smile. It's going to win prizes. And then the father has this delightful nose that his son inherited. So those are traits that were passed on. And a trait is just a characteristic. So for this picture, it's the smile and the nose. For a fox, it could be his red fur, a dog's long legs, a giraffe's spots, a pink petals and a flower. There's tons of characteristics throughout the whole animal and plant kingdom that are passed on. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's the tricky words.
Okay, so let's start with gene first. So genes are a piece of the DNA, and the genes are actually then found on chromosomes, okay? And there are hundreds of genes on one set of chromosomes, and these genes are then ultimately what determine specific characteristics about you. So there is a gene for eye color. There is a gene for your height. There is a gene that, tons of genes that involve your health.
Or your skin color involves several genes
Yep.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling your tongue.
Yep.
That is a genetic trait, and there's a gene that controls your ability to roll your tongue.
Ooh, your earlobes, whether they're connected to your head or they're free hanging,
Yeah, mine
that's
are
a
free.
genetic trait. Mine are connected, I think.
Yeah, over opposites.
So,
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. That's the first question on your summative, so write that down. And it contains genetic instructions for making the organism found, and it's found in the nucleus. So the DNA is the classic double helix structure here. It looks like a twisty stairwell. And that's what it has all your genetic codes. Your DNA is individualized to you. No one else in the whole entire universe will have that same pattern that you have.
so think of your DNA like when mom and dad buy like a new electronic device, and it comes with that direction pamphlet that tells you how it works and all the different parts and what it's made up of. That's your DNA.
Yeah. Now the chromosome, that DNA is so long because you're a slightly complicated organism. So you have, I hate when it does that. You have quite a bit of DNA, and it gets coiled. Just like if you take yarn and you keep on twisting a piece of string over and over again, it gets coiled up, and that structure is called a chromosome. For humans, we have 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. You got 23 from one parent and the other. Other organisms have different amounts of chromosomes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now back to sexual reproduction.
So this is what Ms. Mills was kind of talking about in the beginning, where we needed to clarify that sexual reproduction does not always mean that it involves the act of sex. Okay? Sexual reproduction just means that there are two parents or two givers of
A sex cell?
a sex cell is required. Okay? So in order to go through sexual reproduction, you must have a sperm and an egg cell.
Whether
present.
you're a plant or an animal.
Yeah.
So plants will have sperm cells and egg cells just like animals will. And so you can see here, we just use a classic woman provides the egg, or the female structure of the plant will provide the egg, and the male structure of the plant or the male organism, the male animal, will provide the sperm, and those two are connected through fertilization. This is a British graphic, so you can see the S instead of the Z.
And your fun fact is female organisms, so humans and female animals, at the time of your birth, you have as many eggs as you will ever have. You will not get more eggs as you get older.
We're done making eggs as soon as you give birth. So if when you were in the womb, you were developing eggs already.
Yeah, like real early in the womb, like 3 months along.
Isn't that
you're
crazy?
getting your eggs,
Now,
your egg cells.
boys and their sperm, that doesn't start production until puberty.
Right.
With all animals in the animal kingdom.
And you don't have a limited amount of that.
Which is why, like, women will try to have babies in their 20s and 30s before their eggs get old. Because if a 40-year-old has a baby, that egg's 40 years old.
Yep.
Okay, so sex cells, we did say that word a couple of times, and it sounds like it is. It is a cell that contains half the chromosomes. So if you think about this logically, if a woman gives all of her chromosomes in her sex cell and a man gives all his chromosomes, then that baby's going to have double the chromosomes. That's too much. So each organism will then half their chromosomes before they make the sex cells.
So that, remember seeing that X? So basically what happens is 1/2 of that X goes into the new cell.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay, so making sex cells, that's a 2-step process. It's very complicated. We're going to give you the easy version this year. In high school and in college, they'll expect you to understand the nitty-gritty details. So you're welcome.
Yeah, so that's a pretty simplistic graphic there, okay? So it starts out with 46 total chromosomes, not pairs, okay? And it duplicates that, and then it's going to divide again into 46 and then divide again into 23.
The reason why it's duplicating it is it's jumbling them up. It's taking all of them and throwing them in the air and then splitting them back up. Because you don't want to, you want some diversity with the organism.
So if you think about it, if you got 46 of your classmates together and you took one shoe from each classmate, that would be your original 46 here. And then if you took those and then you duplicated them again, then you take the other shoe from everyone else. Okay, so now you've got 46 of shoes and then another set of 46 shoes. You divide it into 2 new cells, and then you take those and divide it into 23 apiece. Okay?
Okay, so let's try this. This is an organism that has 1, 2, 3, 4 chromosomes in the main body cell, we're going to call it. It's making sex cells. How many chromosomes are going to be in its sex cells? Write the answer there. Now let's think about humans. Humans have 46 chromosomes. How many chromosomes are in the human sex cell? Write the answer in your note guide. Oh, we don't have the answers on the page.
Okay, so how many chromosomes are in each sex cell for the picture illustration above? The original cell started with 4, so in order to be a sex cell that has the correct amount, you're only going to have 2 in that sex cell. Okay?
And human sex cells have?
23.
Yep. By the way, before I move on, there are mutations that happen, and occasionally a 24th chromosome might slip in. And sometimes that baby that inherits the extra chromosome, sometimes it dies in the womb and it's called a miscarriage. Sometimes it is able to live. Depends what chromosomes passed on. Mm-hmm. So Down syndrome, the only difference between a person with Down syndrome and you is that they have 1 extra chromosome. They were given 1 extra one, and that caused the traits that you'll see with a person with Down syndrome.
And it actually happens on chromosome 21. So instead of getting 2 chromosome 21s, they end up with a 3rd one.
Right. So think about how you treat people with disabilities, and when you say things like that's retarded, that's really not anything they can do. That's in their DNA. Mm-hmm. And they actually have one more thing than you do. Okay, so why do sex cells only have half? And it's basically to ensure that you get traits from each of your parents. So you're a combination of the mother and the father, not all your mom or all your dad.
Right, which is why if you have siblings, you may notice that you have some things in common with your siblings, but not other things. Or you may not look anything like your sibling because your sibling has a whole different set of characteristics and genes because of the way that the sex cells divide.
I think it's so funny. I have a friend who has, both of the mom and dad have brown hair, and their 3 children. One has brown hair, one has blonde hair, one's red.
Ooh, and there was just an article, and you can look it up, these twins.
Oh, they're my favorite twins in the whole world.
Our dad is Caucasian, and mom is mixed. And
like black and white mixed.
They have a set of twins, and they're not identical twins.
Clearly.
But the one girl is Caucasian with red hair, and then the other girl has some African American in her, and they look completely different, but they were twins growing inside mom's belly at the same time.
Yeah, fertilized same time. 2 different sets of genes.
Yep.
So you can Google black-white twins. They're in England. They're teenagers now. It's so cool. Okay, so fertilization is a word we're using, and that's when the sperm and egg join together. So that happens in plants. Sperm and eggs cup together. In plants, and sperm and eggs happen with fish and raccoons and all the different organisms.
Yep.
So basically, a half plus a half equals 1 brand new baby.
Now you can say we taught you math.
Yay! Okay, here's advantages and disadvantages.
Okay, so some of the advantages are when you take half of your genetic information from 2 different parents, then it's going to give you quite the variety and diversity. So there's going to be different colors, different shapes, different size. Your intellectual ability is going to be different. Your athletic ability is going to be different. So there's just a whole lot to work with there.
Diversity is kind of fun.
Yeah. And because of that diversity, then we we as humans and other things that go through sexual reproduction are more able to adapt to the environmental changes that occur because of the differences amongst all of us, rather than all being the same to each other.
So some disadvantages are the uniquenesses. Sometimes the uniqueness is a disadvantage. So think of if you were a deer or something and you inherited albinoism, where you don't have that brown fur, you have white, you have no pigmentation. That's going to be a disadvantage because predators will be able to spot you quicker. Because deers are going to want to blend into their environment. So there's some things you don't want to have, those traits. You would be better if you were just like your parent, but unfortunately this was inherited. Some genetic disorders are passed along, like sickle cell. That's something that you're not necessarily going to want to have, but it is passed on, and that's something that could obviously impair your health. And some traits that you need to have aren't passed on to survival. Like there's some conditions where babies are born without skulls. You have to have a skull to protect your brain. You have to have it. And those babies, it's tragic, but they die within the first day of their life. And that's a trait that was not passed on. So that's a major disadvantage of sexual. Okay, there's 2 different types of fertilization.
Okay, so one way that fertilization can occur is what we call internal fertilization. So this actually means that fertilization takes place either very near or inside the female's reproductive tract. So the sperm is either injected into the female or it's injected very near to the female so that it can go straight into her reproductive tract, and that's where the egg and the sperm then meet. They meet inside of the organism, whether it be a human or an animal.
Right. And then, so if you think of internal, the opposite of that. Oh, I forgot about the facts. Okay, so here's some facts. This is not going to happen with plants, clearly. This is something that's going to happen with animals. And when animals fertilize internally, they tend to have 1 or 2 eggs fertilized at a time. And this is because of the next bullet. The mother is able to give a lot of protection to the embryo fetus because it's growing within the mother's body, or it's in an egg.
And when we say a few eggs, we are talking like in the, probably under 10-ish or so. Or it's not a huge amount. Like fish reproduce, they have hundreds, maybe even, upwards towards, over 500. When we say few, we're talking, it doesn't have to be 1 or 2, but it's going to be a much lower number. So like dogs can have 6, 7,
bunnies
8.
have a ton, like 10, compared to humans. Humans have 1 or 2. Bunnies will have like 10. Birds and reptiles will lay between 3 to 10 eggs depending on the species. But they're protective. If you've ever seen a mother bird, a mother duck, or an alligator, they're going to protect their eggs. And once the young are produced, there's only a few at a time. They're not hundreds for the mother to watch. So the examples of organisms that use internal fertilization are most reptiles, not all, most birds, and mammals. So here is external. So external means outside. And this is where the males and females' reproductive organs never come in contact. And essentially, the male fish, for instance, or it could be amphibians, they will spread their sperm in one spot, and hopefully the mama laid her eggs in that spot, and hopefully that sperm and eggs will unite.
So this is very similar to Finding Nemo. Okay, so when you see all the eggs that are sitting in that little cave when Nemo hasn't been born yet, they got there because the eggs were laid and then the sperm was laid by the father. They didn't have like a honeymoon or anything.
No, and it was may not even be the same time. Maybe not be the
Right.
same day. And so there's a lot of by chanceness here. So they're going to lay hundreds and hundreds of eggs and tons of sperm for the hope that some of it gets connected
Yeah.
and not eaten. So here's some facts.
Okay, so most of the time when this happens, the eggs are then left to kind of fend for themselves. So contrary to Nemo believers out there, the mom and dad do not stick around
No,
to
it's a lie.
protect their young. Okay?
Sorry to bust your bubble.
And then because of that, most of them will not make it to past adolescence
Hatching.
or hatching at all. They'll die or be eaten by other predators. So that's why there's so many laid, to try to increase the rate of survival. So if maybe you lay 100 eggs and 2 of them end up surviving, then that's what you're going for. So there's some examples there: fish, crab, and shrimp. And just to clarify, not all animals so like sea turtles lay eggs on beaches and they leave the eggs. Did you know that?
Such a misfit mother.
Yeah, she doesn't fit the mold for...
There's always exceptions out there. And I forgot to write amphibians here. Amphibians do external fertilization too. Okay, so try this yourself. This is what we expect you to know on any sort of assessment. So take a minute and fill that out. And do you want to talk about the answers to that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go real brief. I'll do internal, Miss Burkhart could do external. Internal, animals that use this: birds, reptiles, and mammals. Where? Internally, which inside or near, very near the reproductive tract of the woman. Where do the fertilized eggs develop? There's 2 places. There's either in an egg, like an egg with a shell, or inside the womb. And number of young, I would say few. You're allowed to be vague here.
Yep.
1 to like 10-ish.
Okay, external fertilization, animals that use this method. So we're going to go with fish, shrimp, amphibians. Okay, where are the eggs fertilized? They're fertilized outside of the body. The eggs develop also outside of the body.
All alone.
If fertilization
Tragic.
happens outside the body, then the eggs are going to develop
These
outside the
poor
body.
neglected babies.
It's a sad story. And then the number of young produced at once is going to be a lot. Okay, we're not expecting you to know a specific number, but
632.
it's going to be a lot.
Okay. So kids, next up we will talk about how plants reproduce sexually. So, I know you're excited to hear all about that.
Get ready.
Bye.